and welcome back to David Mackey's Shiny Side Out, show number 475, 570, 400. That's just crazy talk. I know, right? Look, this is listener-funded radio, which means if you can, please donate. Even better yet, go and subscribe to the archives. For $5 measly a month, you can access all of the archives for all of the shows, for all of the hosts, with all the information that you might need, or just for entertainment, right? I mean, like, the thing is this. There's some really interesting stuff. And I know, during the pandemic, everybody's binging on this and binging on that. Well, move away from Netflix or Hulu or whatever you're listening to or watching and come to Revolution Radio and see if you can get your teeth stuck into some information that might just open your mind. Speaking
Netflix
about
has actually
open minds,
seen a huge decline in listenership.
well,
Subscriptions this year.
Oh, only so much TV you can watch, dude.
I know, but when the pandemic started, all of their subscriptions went up, and this year they've actually in comparison to last year, the net total, I think it was like 20 million or something people last year, and this year it's only at 4. It's actually
people's brains are full, and all the good stuff has been watched.
Yeah.
Well, but it's like that. I mean,
they need more content, but the filming's been put in hiatus.
There's that as well, right? I mean, there's a lot of good content, and some of it, some of it's great, but the really great content on it. But the great content, I have to say, I'm waiting for the second season of the Skinwalker Ranch. I really, that's for me. That's the bee's knees. Having said that, if anybody out there in producer land, we are happy to produce content. Obviously, we have content for 475 shows, and we're gonna soon hopefully create a sizzle reel, and we've already written a pilot episode on the Mysteries of the Moon, which we just have to produce and turn into actual video and then shop it around. So you can hopefully maybe sometime in the future see the Shiny Side Out in a video format coming to a channel near you. But that's still a pipe dream. Nonetheless, if anybody's listening and interested to support us, we're more than happy to. Having said all of that, speaking about opening your mind, this is a show where you will need an open mind, because we are drawing a long bow between things that happened 20, 15, 10 years ago, the death of a host of, and not just microbiologists, but top-level, world-leading microbiologists, leading up to the year 2020, when that expertise that we lost there, right, could have come in quite handy, in my opinion. Not only that, but these are not people that just died because they were old and sick. Some, yes, absolutely, of course. Now, these are people that were killed. And then when you look at the connections between these people, a lot of these people were actually connected, which is not surprising either, because if you're at the top of your field, then chances are you're talking to other leaders in your field on a more or less regular basis, one would think, right?
They collaborate.
Well, yeah, you would think so. So by taking out this, not the entire top layer, of course, but maybe these are the people that couldn't be gotten to. Maybe these are the people that had a moral center, or that they couldn't be blackmailed. I mean, I'm just making up stuff. Yeah, I have nothing to verify.
It's not based on anything. These are supposed scenarios. Yes,
complete suppositions, right? I have nothing at all to be able to back this up. All I have is the fact that these people are dead, and quite a few of them were killed. They didn't just die, but they were killed. They were murdered. They had really strange accidents. They were exposed to viruses in a couple of cases that eventually killed them, right? Which is, I guess, a hazard of the job. And murder suicides, like whatever you can imagine happened to this group of people happened. It's a plethora of unfortunate circumstances and terrible accidents. But the reason we're talking about it is because what you would do, and if you plan ahead, and there's nothing in the parasitic class if not planning. I mean, these folk are meticulous planners. Any activity they undertake, because they have to. There aren't that many of them. They have to plan. And I want to give you a simple example here, and this will take us slightly off topic, but I need you to understand this. Now, I'm not saying that the royal family is part of the parasitical class at all. I'm not saying that. I have no evidence. I don't know. Okay? I can't say. What I can say is, though, that Prince Philip planned his funeral for 20 years. The hearse his coffin was driven in took 20 years to be developed. A Land Rover, was redesigned, and he modified it that would carry his coffin to the grave, as it were. Now, that's the kind of time you have on your hands if you don't really have to work, if you don't have to worry about making a crust. I mean, sure, you have to have, official engagements, etc., but you rub shoulders with the most powerful people in the world, okay? And you make sure that it stays that way. You have a lot of spare time. Not only that, you have a lot of funds to do what you want to do, what you need to do. You can have people employed to do things that you want. You can do a lot of things, okay, if you're at the top layer of the income bracket. And when I say top layer, I'm talking about the parasitical class that you don't even see. These are the entities, the creatures, the human beings at some point, I'm sure, that have been in charge for thousands and thousands of years, always maintaining the status quo. That's the game. They can't control all of humanity. It's not possible. You can't do it, right? I mean, you can control a large chunk of it, and you can kill the outliers, the ones that are really posing a threat. But for the most part, you try to play everything that arises, like the Illuminati or the Freemasons or even Christianity in its original form. Any movement, even communism, if you believe it or not, any movement that could potentially help the people is being subverted into its opposite. Okay, that's the trick. I mean, of course, people will rise and people will unite and stand together. But so you do. That's okay for a while. You let it happen for a while, because eventually that you can put your agents in and you can subvert it and it'll go your way.
It's not dissimilar to biker gangs or drug cartels that are being they have obviously infiltrated by the agencies.
Completely.
Go in there to learn about them, understand where they are, and they could shut them down any time they want it.
Correct.
Just depending on how big they get and what's going on. So yes, the control and the level at which these organizations make sure that the population is just going by the business, doing the day-to-day, and not trying to overthrow the parasitic class. I got it right. That's their only goal, is so that they don't get overthrown.
Bingo.
There's plenty more of us than there are of them.
That's unfortunately,
that's all it takes.
But that's unfortunately exactly. Well, look, but that's exactly right. We have been subjected to this kind of control for as long as we've been around. And I maintain as well, by the way, that we all of us, the human race, as you see it, Homo sapiens sapiens, is not the original race of Homo sapiens, in my opinion. And I believe that the human race was much more diverse in ancient times, and as we're learning today. I mean, science is catching up with our opinion, Dave. How about that?
That's right.
And so you have to go back to the oldest texts. You have to go back to the oldest texts. The Sumerian texts, and if we can start deciphering, some of the others, that'd be awesome. But right now, of course, that is not quite possible. We need another Rosetta Stone, ideally. But it is clear that we've been manipulated for a long, long time. We have been at the mercy, to some extent, because we're ignorant of what's going on, of what's really going on. We're completely ignorant. And this is really, where we are completely exposed. We are completely exposed. It's a fact. However, today's show, Dave, why don't you start us up on where we left off? Is about the continuing deaths that we shared with you of these microbiologists.
Yeah, that's correct. So this is show 475, just letting everyone know, reminding you of the fact. And we've gone through a number of years, and we're at March 13th, 2004, Vedake Srinivasan, expertise, microbiologist. Now, the circumstance of death was crashed car into guardrail, and it was ruled a stroke. April 12th, 2004. Ilsley Ingram. Oh, that's a relative of mine somewhere back in the thing, Mackie. I've got Ingram and Drummond as go back in my family history. 84, expertise, director of supra-regional hemophilia reference center and the supra-regional Centre for the Diagnosis of Bleeding Disorders at the St. Thomas Hospital in London. Circumstance of death, unknown. May 5th, my ex-wife's birthday, 2004, William T. Maguire, 39. Expertise, New Jersey University professor and senior programmer analyst and adjunct professor at the New Jersey Institute of Technology in Newark. Circumstance of death, body found in 3 suitcases floating in Chesapeake Bay. That's suicide, Mackie.
Clearly.
That's what that is.
What else could it be? I mean,
I'm good at this. This game is, yeah. It's like Celebrity Head. You have to.
I've got the smarts.
Remember, I science. Mackie, do you science?
All day long.
All day long.
Science.
You can chew it. I do so much science. May 14th, 2004, Dr. Eugene F. Mallove, 56, expertise. Mallove was well respected for his knowledge of cold fusion. He had just published an open letter outlining the results of and reasons for his last 15 years in the field of new energy research. Dr. Mallove was convinced it was only a matter of months before the world would actually see a free energy device. Circumstance of death, here it comes. Died after being beaten to death during an alleged robbery. Suicide, absolutely.
Suicide by being beaten to death.
Yeah,
how did the guy he drowned in his own blood? That's what happened.
It was a drowning. Yeah, that's right. Never mind the beating part. Go ahead, Mackie.
May 25th, 2004. Antonina Presnyakova. Expertise, former Soviet biological weapons laboratory in Siberia. So obviously she was working out of one of the death labs, we could say. Circumstance of death. She died after accidentally sticking herself with a needle laced with Ebola. Whoops.
Yeah, you do that. That's something you do.
Happens all the time. Now, look, the truth is, it can happen, of course. But if you look at it in the context of all the other things that are happening, right? All these other deaths, well, really, I don't know. July 21, 2004. Go on.
I was just going to say, if you're holding a hypodermic with Ebola in it, do you think that you're going to be blasé and just whatever? Oh no, look at that! I've just stabbed myself with it. No, I'm going to be holding that thing with tongs at arm's length, going, "Oh, is anyone? Who do you want this? I don't want it." Right?
Red shirt assistant number 2. Come, you hold it.
The guy that didn't have any dialogue from the first ad break in, you're gone.
You're gone, baby. It's ensign number 5. July 21, 2004. Dr. John Badway, aged 54. His expertise, scientist and accidental politician when he opposed disposal of sewage waste program of exposing humans to sludge. Biochemist at Harvard Medical School specializing in infectious diseases. See, I also believe that if you come to the negative attention of the powers that be, then you come to an untimely end. Circumstance of death, he suddenly developed pneumonia-like symptoms and died in 2 weeks. Is this an early test case of what we're seeing now? I don't know. I'm not saying it is, but it's really, 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 really interesting. June 22, 2004, Thomas Gold, 84, expertise. He was the founder and for 20 years the director of the Cornell Center for Radiophysics and Space Research, where he was a close colleague of Planetary Society co-founder Carl Sagan. Gould was famous for his provocative, controversial, and sometimes outrageous theories. Guy after my own heart. Gould's theory of the deep, hot biosphere holds important ramifications for the possibility of life on other planets, including seemingly inhospitable planets within our own solar system. Gould sparked controversy in 1955 when he suggested that the moon's surface was covered with a fine rock powder. Circumstances of death, died of heart failure. Again, he was 84. I can say fair enough, maybe he did.
But he was also right. The controversy was, he was right. He owned it. Good on him.
No, completely.
It's called regolith.
That is exactly right, and it really doesn't make any sense at all to have that fine powder at all on the moon, none. But that's a different show. The moon makes no sense, by the way, at all.
Correct.
And nor does the Earth-Moon-Sun relationship. In fact, sorry to digress, but the quote. No, well, since it's there, the quote that it comes to mind is always. I think it's Asimov who said it. Could have been someone else, but I think it was Asimov. It is easier to explain the non-existence of the moon than its existence.
Yes.
All right, that's where we're at. June 24, 2004, Dr. Asefa Tulu, 45, expertise. Dr. Tulu joined the health department in 1997 and served for 5 years as the country's lone epidemiologist. He was charged with tracking the health of the county. Sorry, county, not country. County's lone epidemiologist. He was tracking the health of the county, including the spread of diseases such as syphilis, AIDS, and measles. He also designed a system for detecting a bioterrorism attack involving viruses or bacterial agents. Okay? He designed the system. Tulu often coordinated efforts to address major health concerns in Dallas County, such as the West Nile virus outbreaks of the past few years, and worked with the media to inform the public. Circumstances of death, again, 45. The Dallas County chief epidemiologist was found at his desk, apparently died of a stroke. June 20th. I know.
That's classic agency style death. That is.
It's a non-specific kind of death,
Yeah.
June 27, 2004. Dr. Paul Norman of Salisbury, Wiltshire, 52. Expertise. He was the chief scientist for chemical and biological defense at the Ministry of Defense's laboratory at Portendown, Wiltshire. He traveled the world lecturing on the subject of weapons of mass destruction. This is another favorite way to get rid of people. Circumstance of death. Died when the Cessna 206 crashed shortly after taking off from Dunksville Airfield on Sunday. A father and daughter also died at the scene, and 44-year-old parachute instructor and Royal Marine Major Mike Wills later died in the hospital. Dave?
Yeah, the people around the victim are just, what's it called, Becky, again?
Sorry, which one?
No. In your point here on the Dr. Paul Norman, collateral damage.
Collateral damage, yes. Also loose ends, right?
Yeah, you don't want to, they could have said, oh, look, there was this funny thing on there, like this ticking thing, I don't know, or the brake lines were cut kind of thing. June 29th, 2004, John Mullen, 67, expertise, a nuclear research scientist with McDonnell Douglas. Circumstance of death, died from a huge dose of poisonous arsenic. Oh, arsenic, that's cumulative. So a huge dose, that's going to overwhelm you pretty quickly. July 1st, 2004, Edward Hoffman, 62, expertise. Aside from his role as a professor, Hoffman held leadership positions within the UCLA medical community, worked to develop the first human PET scanner in 1973 at Washington University in St. Louis. Circumstance of death, unknown. I have to say, Mickey, in 2004, how could we have an unknown cause of death? Surely, surely there's people that know what it looks like. Let me
tell you this. No, you're right, though. You're right. But this is really interesting. So I have to dispel a myth here, right? And let me start with the myth of another design, and then we'll get right back into the show notes. But you bring up a very important point. It's really, really important to understand this. How many murders do you think are successfully solved when the murderer was not an immediate family member or neighbor or someone known to the victim? How many?
Crisscross. Very few.
Correct. The answer is absolutely correct. It's very few. It's single-digit percentages. If the murderer is not a close family member or otherwise known to the victim, the chances of the murder to be found are almost insignificant, non-existent.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's
correct. Right. So that's a fact. Now, when it comes to causes of death, see, we did a show on this, everybody, and it's really interesting to delve into it, but people still haven't quite decided what death actually means. So the definition of death, we went through this in some length. So if you've got the chance to listen to the show, please go ahead. So when is death actually? Is it heart? Is it body? Is it brain dead? When is and how long do you have to be brain dead before you're dead, right? Etc. Etc. And then the cause of death. A friend of mine is super fit, and a natural born athlete, pretty much good at any sport he ever did. And if he's listening, you know who we are. and we go cycling on a regular basis, or more or less regular these days. But he has got a very rare heart condition, and he felt dizzy a bit. And he went to a doctor, and doctor said, "There's nothing wrong with you." Exactly, Prawn, David Kelly's suicide. We mentioned it already last week in the show. Sorry, Prawn. And we talked about Dr. David Kelly.
Yes.
And he was connected to a whole bunch of other deaths here. So he wasn't happy with that answer because he was a bit worried, and fair enough too, right? So he went to another doctor, and this doctor clearly was better. Yeah, absolutely. And he was not better because he did a more detailed test. I don't know, whatever. But he found that my friend has this rare heart condition where you're fit as a fiddle one day, and the next moment you fall over dead, like literally gone, right? With no warning, you just fall over dead because his heart just stops. And now he has an internal little sort of like a defibrillator, like a heart starter, if you will, battery operated under his skin. It's about the size of a matchbox, right? Connected to his heart, and soon I think he has to replace it because it only lasts so long, and you can't really recharge the battery.
So long, yeah.
Correct. So, but the point here is, if that were to happen, Dave, if you just drop dead and you go, oh well, why did he? Well, his heart stopped. But it stopped because he had a congenital defect. But you might not necessarily.
Because of why? If you didn't find it in advance, and there was no medical record, bingo.
Yeah, there you go. And see, this is why it's so elegant to have people die of heart attacks or strokes or similar things, because it's a non-specific. I mean, it could happen to anyone. You could have a clot in their brain and you die. All right, or you could have a clogging in your artery, or there could be some kind of congenital heart defect that you have. So, cause of death. This actually really, well, while I don't like seeing it, I do admire the honesty. Okay, I do admire the honesty of medical practitioners. Look, I don't know what he died of. He died, but I can't find a cause of death. He's dead. His heart stopped, or whatever happened, right?
Well, the question is, we do you give us permission as a medical expert to do an autopsy to find cause of death? The family go, nah, not so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed. And Ceci, sorry, that's actually the name of the chat room. He says, I call the suicide. I call murder on Dr. David Kelly. I completely agree. There's no way David Kelly committed suicide, not in the fashion that he did. Plus, nobody was even close to suspecting that he ever would. So I completely agree with the chat room on that. Yep. Now, so cause of death. While we like to think we're really advanced medically, we're really not. And there are a lot of things we just don't know still. And I direct your attention to recently having found a mucus gland in your head, the 2-inch mucus gland that we new and we discovered it, but it was always there. It's new to be
discovered. Right? It's always been there,
which is really interesting, right? It's
like, how do we miss that, right?
How do we miss it? Yeah, like finding a new species of Homo sapiens, like the Homo forensis, for example, right? Or finding out
finding them alive and well somewhere would be that kind of shock, awesome. Right?
But this is the thing. See, Bigfoot isn't all big. So all these Bigfoot sightings, they don't always have these big, massive creatures.
No,
right?
That's true.
There's some tiny ones as well. So look, sorry, we're drifting far, but again, everything is connected. Everybody, right? That's really the point here. and you can talk until the cows come home on these things. No, wait.
Yeah, so I know where we're at. So we're in July 2nd, 2004. We haven't even got. We're just come past the halfway point in 2004. Larry Bostard, 53, expertise, a Sandia scientist who helped develop a foam spray to clean up congressional buildings and media sites during the anthrax scare in 2001. Worked at Sandia National Laboratories in Albuquerque. His team came up with a new technology used against biological and chemical agents. Circumstance of death, unknown. Nice segue into that. July 6, 2004, Stephen Tibet, or Tabet, depends on where you come from. If he was French-Canadian, could have been Tibet. 42 is the answer to the universe. Expertise, an associate professor and epidemiologist at the University of Washington, a world-renowned HIV doctor and researcher who had worked with HIV patients in a vaccine clinical trial for the HIV Vaccine Trials Network. Circumstance of death, died of an unknown illness. Not even a specific or known illness. Goodness. Still in July 21st, 2004, Dr. Bassem Al-Murdares, expertise. He was a PhD chemist and he died. Well, his mutilated body was found in the city of Samarra, Iraq, and had been tortured before being killed.
Suicide.
Yeah, that's right.
Accidental drowning.
Solid. That's solid evidence right there. Yeah. He mutilated himself until he died.
That's what happens.
August 12th, 2004, Professor John Clark. Expertise, head of the science lab which created Dolly the sheep. Professor Clark led the Roslin Institute in Midlothian. It sounds like Middle Earth. One of the world's leading animal biotechnology research centers. He played a crucial role in creating the transgenic sheep that earned the Institute worldwide fame. And he was found hanging in his holiday home. Wow. September 5th, 2004, Mohammed Toki Hussein al-Talakani, expertise, Iraqi nuclear scientist. He was a practicing nuclear physicist since 1984. Goodness, 20 years. Circumstance of death, he was shot dead in Mahmoudiya, south of Baghdad. November 2, 2004, John R. La Montagne, expertise, head of the U.S. Infectious Disease Unit under Tommy Thompson, was NIAID deputy or NIAID deputy director, and he died while in Mexico. No cause stated. I'll take this last one. December 21st, 2004, Taleb Ibrahim al-Dahar, expertise, Iraqi nuclear scientist. There's the second one. Circumstance of death. He was shot dead north of Baghdad by unknown gunmen. Actually, I remember this on the news. He was on his way to work at the university when armed men opened fire on his car as it was crossing a bridge. My goodness, 57 kilometers north of Baghdad. The vehicle swerved off the bridge and fell into the river. Al-Dahar, who was a professor at the local university, was removed from the submerged car and rushed to the hospital where he was pronounced dead. Oh, I'll take the last one, Mecca. You can just start on 2005. December 29th, 2004, the last one we have listed, Tom Thorne and Beth Williams, expertise, two wildlife scientists, husband and wife wildlife veterinarians who were nationally prominent experts on chronic wasting disease and brucellosis. Circumstance of death, they were killed in a snowy weather crash on the US 287 in northern Colorado. Mickey, that winds up 2004.
It does, correct, and quite a few. The reason we also mentioning nuclear scientists, because I believe that it might be a wham slam approach to this. There may be now that we're sufficiently destabilized. I think look, it's possible there's going to be a nuclear event, is my opinion, somewhere probably in the Middle East. That's my opinion. Again, don't know if it's going to happen, but that's what I've got a gut feel there, right? Anyway, 2005, Leonid Strakunsky died June 8, in fact, 2005, after being hit on the head with a champagne bottle. That's how he died. Strakunsky specialized in creating microbes resistant to biological weapons. Strakunsky was found dead in his hotel room in Moscow, where he'd come from Smolensk en route to the United States. Investigators are looking for a connection between the murder of this leading bioweapons researcher and the hepatitis outbreak in Tver, Russia. Robert J. Lull, age 66, he died May 19, 2005, of multiple stab wounds. Despite his missing car and apparent credit card theft, Homicide Inspector Holly Parra said investigators are not convinced that robbery was the sole motive for Lull's killing. She said a robber would typically have taken more valuables from Lull's home than what the killer left with. Lull had been chief of nuclear medicine at San Francisco General Hospital since 1990 and served as a radiology professor at UCSF. He was past president of the American College of Nuclear Physicians and the San Francisco Medical Society, and served as editor of the Medical Society's journal San Francisco Medicine from 1997 to 1999. Lee Lull said her former husband was a proponent of nuclear power and loved to debate his political position with others. Todd Kopilla, age 41, died May 8, 2005, of hemorrhagic pancreatitis at the Los Alamos Hospital, according to the state medical examiner's office. Picture of him was not available due to the secret nature of his work. There's a picture of his funeral, though, which was part of the article. His death came 2 days after Kopilla publicly rejoiced over news that the lab's director was leaving. Kopilla was fired by Director Pete Nanos on September 23, 2004, following a security scandal. Kopilla said he was fired because he didn't immediately return from a family vacation during a lab investigation into 2 classified computer disks that were thought to be missing. The apparent security breach forced Nanos to shut down the lab for several weeks. Kopilla claimed he was made the scapegoat over the disks, which investigators concluded never existed. The mistake was blamed on a clerical error. After he was fired, Kopilla accepted a job as a contractor at Bechtel Nevada Corp., a research company that works with Los Alamos and other national laboratories. He was also working on a new scatter reduction grids in megavolt radiography, focused on metal plates or crossed grids to act to stop the scattered radiation while allowing the unscattered or direct rays to pass through with other scientists. Okay. David Banks, age 45, died May 8, 2005. Banks, based in northern Queensland, died in an airplane crash along with 14 others. He was known as an agro-genius, inventing the mosquito trap used for cattle. Banks was the principal scientist with Quarantine Authority Biosecurity Australia and heavily involved in protecting Australians from unwanted diseases and pests. Most of Dr. Banks's work involved preventing potentially devastating diseases making their way into Australia. He had been through Indonesia, looking at the potential for foot and mouth disease to spread through the archipelago and into Australia. Other diseases he had fought to keep out of Australian livestock, herds, and fruit orchard include classical swine fever, Nipah virus, and Japanese encephalitis. And having said that, Australia is one of the most quarantine-secure countries in the world. It really is. We take that stuff seriously. Dr. Douglas James Passaro, age 43, he died April 18, 2005 from unknown cause in Oak Park, Illinois. Dr. Passaro was a brilliant epidemiologist who wanted to unlock the secrets of a spiral-shaped bacteria that causes stomach disease. He was a professor who challenged his students with real-life exercise in bioterrorism. He was married to Dr. Sherry Nordstrom. Geetha Angara, aged 43, died February 8, 2005. This formerly missing chemist was found in a Totowa, New Jersey water treatment plant's tank. Angara, 43, of Holmdel, was last seen on the night of February 8 doing water quality tests at the Passaic Valley Water Commission plant in Totowa, where she worked for 12 years. Divers found her body in a 35-foot deep sump opening at the bottom of one of the empty tanks. Investigators are treating Angara's death as a possible homicide. Angara, a senior chemist with a doctorate from New York University, was married and the mother of 3.
So
now,
sad.
one of the best ways to actually spread the disease, and one of the best factors is water. Put something in the water supply, right? You know this. Just saying. Jeong H. Im, aged 72. He died January 7, 2005. And you might have seen it, the chronology was backwards. We're going from the end of 2005 to the beginning of 2005. The Korean Jeong H. Im died of multiple stab wounds to the chest before firefighters found his body in the trunk of a burning car on the 3rd level of Maryland Avenue garage. Coroner ruled it an accidental suicide by drowning. I'm kidding. No, I'm kidding. That's not
what it says.
No. A retired research assistant professor at the University of Missouri, Columbia, and primarily a protein chemist, MUPPD with the assistance of the Columbia Police Department and Columbia Fire Department are conducting a death investigation of the incident. A person of interest, described as a male, 6 foot to 6'2", wearing some type of mask, possibly a painter's mask or drywall type mask, was seen in the area of the Maryland Avenue garage. Dr. Im was primarily a protein chemist, and he was a researcher in the field. Again, proteins are actually very important in the transmission of diseases as well, as you probably know. Which brings us to 2006. Then you take 2008. My friend Lee Jong-woo, age 61, died May 22, 2006, after suffering a blood clot on the brain. Lee was spearheading the organization's fight against global threats from bird flu, AIDS, and other infectious diseases. A WHO Director General since 2003, Lee was his country's top international official. The affable South Korean, who liked to lighten his press conferences with jokes, was a keen sportsman with no history of ill health, according to officials.
Yeah, in 2008, Bruce Edwards Evans, 62, died July 29th of an overdose. He committed suicide prior to formal charges being filed by the Federal Bureau of Investigation for an alleged criminal connection to the 2001 anthrax attacks. Evans was likely solely responsible for the deaths of 5 persons and the injury of dozens of others, resulting from the mailings of several anonymous letters to members of Congress and members of the media in September and October of 2001, which letters contained Bacillus anthracis, commonly referred to as anthrax. Evans was a co-inventor of 2 US patents for anthrax vaccine technology. Goodness. Maggie?
But you know what I find interesting, and everybody, so we've had multiple deaths in the years leading up to 2006. I mean, multiple, right? 2005, several, and 2004, scores of people, in 2000, and so on and so forth.
It looks like they had to regroup.
Well, come
people
2006
with an agenda.
Yeah, come 2006, 2008, and 2009, and even 2010. The deaths dramatically reduce, and then in 2012 again, obviously, then 2014 in the Malaysian airline crash, quite a few people died. But the point is that I think by 2006, the powers that be probably got their point across.
They were shaking in their boots.
So if you're in this field and someone comes to you and says, maybe you shouldn't be looking at this, or maybe you should be looking at that, or are you on board? If you're not on board, here's a list of people that weren't on board either. They weren't on board. There's 50, 60 people here that weren't on board. Are you on board? I'm on board. I don't know what it is I'm on board with, but because the moral fiber of many people is not that strong, and you can't blame people. I get it, right? And so clearly the people that are being killed in 2006, 2008, in my opinion, were people that were still not on board.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my take on this, because the number of deaths reduced dramatically. Because by then, the powers that be had made their point, and now there's an impressive list of people they can show to their potential victims and say, Bob, you see these guys here? Yeah, they didn't really want to play ball. Right here, right here, front and center, sir. And if you don't like it, I can change. 2009. Wallace L. Pannier, 81, died August 6 of respiratory failure and other natural causes. Pannier, a germ warfare scientist whose top secret projects included a mock attack on the New York subway with powder bacteria in 1966. Mr. Pannier worked at Fort Detrick, a U.S. Army installation in Frederick that tested biological weapons during the Cold War and is now a center for biodefense research. He worked in the Special Operations Division, a secretive unit operating there from 1949 to 1969, according to family members and published reports. The unit developed and tested delivery systems for deadly agents such as anthrax and smallpox. Again, he was 81, so he probably is a natural death. But we put everybody in here. You never know. 2010, 2010. John Jack P. Wheeler III, 66, last seen December 30th, found dead in Delaware. In a Delaware landfill. He fought to get the Vietnam Memorial built and served in 2 Bush administrations. His death has been ruled a homicide in New York, Delaware, by the police in New York, Delaware. Wheeler graduated from West Point in 1966 and had a law degree from Yale and business degree from Harvard. His military career included serving in the Office of the Secretary of Defense and writing a manual on the effectiveness of biological and chemical weapons, which recommended that the United States not use biological weapons. The recommendation was to not use them. You can't say that. It's not a good thing to say. Chitra Chauhan, 33, died November 15, of course, 2010, was found dead in an apparent suicide by cyanide at a Temple Terrace hotel, police said. Chauhan left a suicide note saying she used cyanide. Hazmat team officials said the cyanide was found only in granular form, meaning it was not considered dangerous outside of the room it was found in. The chemical is considered more dangerous in a liquid or gas form. Potassium cyanide, the apparent cause of death, is a chemical commonly used by universities in teaching chemistry on conducting research, but it was not used in the research project she was working on. Chauhan, a molecular biologist, was a postdoctoral researcher in the Global Health Department in the College of Public Health. She earned her doctorate from the Institute of Genomics and Integrative Biology in New Delhi in India in 2005, then studied mosquitoes and disease transmission at the University of Notre Dame. Not on board. Malcolm Kasadaban, 60, died September 13 of plague. Kasadaban, a renowned molecular geneticist with a passion for new research, had been working to develop an even stronger vaccine for the plague. I think that might be the bubonic plague. The medical center says the plague bacteria he worked with was a weakened strain that isn't known to cause illness in healthy adults. The strain was approved by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention for laboratory studies.
2012, Ebola microbiologist and U.S. connection. Overseen by the U.S. Department of Defense, the DoD, under the Transformational Medical Technologies Program, or TMT, of the Defense Threat Reduction Agency and the National Institute of Health, the NIH, have spent millions of dollars conducting scientific research into the Ebola virus, its potential for being turned into a biological weapon, and certain vaccine efforts through 2 drug corporations, Massachusetts-based Sarepta Therapeutics and Tecmira Pharmaceuticals of Canada. Then funding was abruptly cut. The TMT creates relationships with private sector biotech firms, pharmaceutical corporations, and academic institutions, as well as other government agencies to advance biological warfare, research viral and biological weapons, and estimate threat levels of all biological agents based on the ability to infect and effectiveness of devastation. Just run those parallels in your mind right now with what has taken place as far as the coronavirus is concerned. The DoD suddenly stopped funding Ebola vaccine research through these two corporations due to financial constraints. Their money dried up. With the sporadic nature of Ebola outbreaks combined with the absolute deadly nature of the virus makes it a hard sell to large pharmaceutical corporations because it isn't a huge customer base, and big pharma is obviously interested in big profits. So these niche products, Ebola vaccine, which are important for biodefense, are really driven by small companies, according to Larry Zeitlin, president of MAP Biopharmaceuticals, who is developing therapies to combat Ebola. Therapies, not a vaccine. Mysteriously, microbiologists and virologists who were involved with research into immunology and bioweapons have either gone missing or have turned up dead over 2 decades. Some of these scientists had ties to the Howard Hughes Medical Institute, the NIH, the DoD, just to name a few. While the number of experts involved in infectious disease research, having died under questionable circumstances, has risen exponentially, the US government has remained nonchalant. In November of 2002, DynCorp was given $322 million to contract to develop, produce and store vaccines for the Department of Defense. DynCorp has been connected with Promise, a software program designed to identify and target specific individuals for operations known only to the US government. One of the most shocking calls for depopulation came from Dr. Eric R. Pianka, scientist at the University of Texas back in 2006. Pianka was speaking to an audience of fellow scientists, students, and professors when he proclaimed that 90% of the world's population needed to be killed using weaponized form of Ebola virus. Just let that sink in for a second. Mm-hmm. He stated that airborne version of Ebola would be more effective than the HIV/AIDS virus has been since its release in 1979 because of the speed in which the victim dies. So Maggie and I have spoken about, what would make an optimal, pathogen or bioweapon. And this, if you want it to be a virus, it's got to be, non-detectable, indetectable or undetectable for a great length of time so that more people can become infected. So it has to be infectious and not detectable, and for it still to have a lethal outcome. But what we're talking about these days is the opportunity for it to be a long game virus that affects population not immediately, but within the next 2 generations. And they just don't result.
And the key trigger, or the key consideration is this: if you have, for argument's sake, if you have 50, 60, 70% of the population die in a short span of time, let's call it months even, let's say over a few months. Yep. Let's say that happened. Everything would break down. Society would descend into chaos completely. You understand what I mean? It's just not a feasible situation for the continuation of civilization. Civilization, as we know it, would simply stop. However, if you reduce the birth rate or other things like that, chances are that you would then see a gradual shift or change to the civilization that you're in at the moment, right? So,
the economy actually declines, but doesn't suddenly collapse on you.
Correct. I mean, it could be collapses here and there, but it wouldn't be a catastrophic failure of civilization. Mm-hmm. It would be a gradual downturn, and you're not having no births or no people coming in. You still have people. I mean, the scenario in Children of Men, the movie, is that no births are happening, which of course would lead to complete collapse because there's no future.
That's right.
But now with this scenario, you still have maybe 10% of the normal births, or 20% of the normal, or whatever it might be, right? But it's a significant reduction, but there's still a future, right? So you probably focus on those children that are there much more than you would have before, just to ensure that civilization continues. And that's what the parasitic class wants. The parasitic class does not want to because they have been in a total meltdown. And I reckon that's what happened a couple of cycles ago as well, Dave. I mean, you look at these ruins, Puma Punku, other ruins in the world, right? The Tools Down event in the Becker Valley, the global Tools Down event. You can see that I don't think that's a
very nearly wiped us all out.
Yeah. Can I just say something? I've just sent the link of the article that Dave just shared with you into the chat room, and Peck tried to get to it. It's now a 404 error.
Yeah, it doesn't exist anymore.
I'm glad I copied it out when I had the chance, Peck. That's all I can say, my friend. Okay, so
the internet is temporary. We've learnt that.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
But so we don't. Sorry, the parasitic elite doesn't want a complete collapse. So they just want to reduce the numbers to more manageable levels, and that's how you have to see it. Manageable levels.
So if there was a complete collapse, all money is worthless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Their wealth that's tied up in things that are wealthy or have value today would all disappear.
Correct.
And there wouldn't be any value. And their operation is based on maintaining that level of separation between us and them.
There you go.
That's terribly important if you're them.
Absolutely. Status quo, maintenance of the status quo is the penultimate goal. And over the last few centuries and millennia, in fact, all we've ever seen is a maintaining, a continuation of the status quo. It looks like things are changing, but they're not. Not really. See, we used to have, slavery. We used to have feudalism. People, had a well, but the point is, we are now living. We're living a lot better than we did in.
I'm not destroying your point, Mackie. I promise you that's just, I know. That's very funny.
It is funny, and the truth is that for the vast majority of the population on the planet, it is still like that. It's still like they're living in feudal times. They're living very close to the existential minimum, and some below it, right? People are starving to death. It's a fact. People are dying because they've got dirty water. People are dying because they haven't got enough food. And there's a lot of people like that. The few of us, and I mean, we're talking like 20% of the world's population are living in relative comfort. Okay? The vast majority of the world is not. And the parasitic class lives in a state that, for people like you and me that have, I guess, comfortable lifestyle, is completely unimaginable. We have, I mean, what they have, the technology they have access to, and this is where it all connects, because I do believe there's a secret space program. I still believe that we are a spacefaring species, not on the surface of the planet.
No.
Think of the surface of the planet as the third world. Think of it that way. And the inner Earth dwellers, and I'm not talking about a hollow Earth at all. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about massive bases underwater in the Earth's crust, etc.
Agreed.
On the moon, on the planets, they are the true civilization on this planet. All right, that's what I think. But yeah, so a collapse of civilization on the surface is not something that you want. Not only that, let's say it did happen. Let's say civilization collapsed. If it did collapse, somebody might think, hey, it's a good idea to just trigger all the nuclear weapons we have. And all of a sudden, the parasitic class has got a serious problem.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
Despite their, if there was a collapse of society, a societal collapse, the civilization no longer sends people to work to supply power. Think about all of our money now, Mackie. It's all digital. Turn off the power. There is nothing.
Nothing.
That's the end. You don't turn power back on if there's no one producing power. It just doesn't come back on again.
That's it.
It's the end of their reign. that would be the absolute end. There would not be any coming back from that.
That's right.
It would take another 1,000 years.
The music, there's the music. Donate if you can. Come back next week and stay for Gerber.
All right, so this is David making Shiny Side Out. You've just got another show under our belts. This is 475. Catch us next week for another one. Do like, share, and subscribe. Please share. Please tell more people about our show. And we'll catch you next week. See ya.
Thank you for listening to Revolution